All right, good evening. I am opening this meeting at 6:30 p.m. on April the 1st, 2026. All members of the select board are present. Our town administrator is remote, and we are recording this meeting. If you would all join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, item number 2, citizen statements and petitions. Is there anybody online or in person that would like to come up and address the board? Sir, come on up and give us your name and your address and have your 2 minutes.
It's in 10 seconds.
2-ish minutes. I'm not going to throw up a counter for this one.
My name is Joel Karsh. I'm from Ashkins Drive. And I just wanted to address the board. I know it's not a subject on the agenda tonight, but it's in reference to Providence culvert. And I've got a bunch of questions, and I've also got some thought processes that I just want to get out to the board, and maybe it'll lead into follow-up. I first want to say that, you know, I'm passionate about this. I've got some unique situations that make this an important part of my life. If that, depending on how that closure goes forward. I think I made some comments on Facebook that probably weren't the best comments to make about people caring and things like that. I know the board cares, bottom line. But I respectfully ask the board, the TA, the town departments, this is not just, to quote someone else, this is not an inconvenience. This is a hardship for all the residents of this town on that side. And I'm not going to go into detail. I think another forum needs to be thought of to do that. But I could go on in detail for a long time, all those hardships. They're financial, they're personal, and they'll impact the community at large. I think we have a perfect opportunity for the community, our elected officials, the town departments, to brainstorm on what might be a viable way to minimize the impact on the residents of that side. Because I'm going to throw something else out too. We don't know. We say 4 months. It could be 5 months. It could be 6 months. I'm not, you know, I don't think we can sit here and say that at this point. It's going to impact the school year. It's going to impact town services. It's going to impact postal delivery. And we can't just sit here and say, okay, let's just close it and get her done, and whatever that. So I think there's a compromise someplace. Again, I've got like 9 million ideas, but, you know, 2 minutes, I'm not going to go through them at this point. But I offer that get involved, to work with you folks, to get other community representatives in here and help mitigate some of the negativity that's out there. Turn this around, make this a good thing for the town. And I think, I mean, I've seen papers and people's side of their mailbox and things. I don't want that. I want to make this, we need the culvert fixed. And I guess the only thing I want to say is, you know, when can that forum begin? What is the schedule for the replacement? How do we get the details? How do we better communicate with the town? Can I help with that? who in the town, who in the town departments can help us develop a plan to serve the people they work for. And I think it's super important at this point. I'm probably at my two.
Oh, you're way over, but it's cool.
I don't want to say.
So Joel, do you have
I'm
my
closing at this point. I said, this,
you have my contact information?
I have your contact.
All right, so nothing you said was wrong.
Well, I know.
Get in touch with me after the meeting about we can talk about what it means to be like the community advocate for this situation. Tonight's agenda does have a discussion about this. It's around the warrant. It'll be an hour from now. If you want to pop home and listen, or you want to stay and hang out.
Nobody counted down?
I don't know what that was. And then, oh, he's still on.
Yeah, there's people who already know that the warrant's going to be.
Yeah, we're going to have that discussion in just a little bit.
Later.
And then,
I'd love to get involved from that perspective and make it better. And I'll have a ton on the agenda, go to it. One last time, how can I help? And how can I help? Obviously, I have a vested interest in helping. And I can go into all the particulars that I have and probably other people in that area have. So thank you for your time.
You're welcome.
I'll get in touch with you.
Get in touch with me. Yeah, and we'll talk about this in just a little bit.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
So Joanne, do you want to come up and talk for just a second? And are you by your face telling me that the Artemis
it's gone.
is launched and on its way through the atmosphere? So that's a big deal. First time back to the moon in a very long time, right? So we wish them well. Why don't you give us your name and your address and let us know what you're doing.
17 Crestview Road, and I'm here on behalf of the Cultural Council to give you the final plans for the mock signing to get your approval. August 2nd will be the mock signing. It'll be at 3 p.m. We have decided to hold it in front of the town hall. So we need your approval to be able to hold it in front of the town hall. Plus what I'm being told by different people on the group to do a moving closure like you do for Memorial Day, where you block only a certain area.
Mhm.
We'd like to block it off right in front of the old Danny's Variety here and at Blackstone Street.
Okay.
Okay, 3 o'clock. But prior to that, the events would be from 12 to 2. We're going to have a shuttle that'll take them to the Historical Society Museum, stop in front of Amadon Church and the Unitarian Church. It's going to be a history touring shuttle. So the person on the shuttle will give history of Mendon as they go along, and they'll probably do some of the cemeteries and different things like that. You had voiced your opinion about wanting to have an open house here at the town hall.
So I keep voicing my opinion.
Well, that is going to happen that day
Awesome.
because it's being in front of the town hall. The articles will be displayed up here. And people will be able to come into the town hall and view the articles, see the history of it. And Ellen will be here to be able to display them and show them to people. That night, we're going to have a band concert up at the town park. I've already been in touch with the Parks and Recreation. We were hoping to have it on the beach, but because depending on the number of people, it'd be tight. So we're going to have it under the pavilion there. And that will be at 6:30 at night.
Okay.
And that's
And
what,
I have written here that there's also a lottery.
there is a lottery. We are asking, we need 56 people, and I'm encouraging you all to join. Okay, but we have put one slot aside for a person to sign as a select board member.
Okay.
This is a very progressive signing. We are coming from 1776 to 2026, where it says "we the people." Well, this is "we the people," including women.
Okay.
All right, so it is women and men. We've asked them to be, they have to be over the age of 18 because otherwise we'd have to get permission from parents. They have to be a Mendon resident. Okay, this is strictly for Mendon. I have in the process of getting a replica scroll document of the actual Independence Declaration of Independence recreated with a blank spot at the bottom where you all will sign. This will then be turned over to the Historical Society or the town to keep for preservation for years to come. Because this is history in the making for Mendon.
Yeah.
So.
Will people be signing the historic names, not our?
You're gonna
own-
sign
our
your
own
name.
Signatures.
You're gonna sign
Oh.
your name.
Declare.
We will announce all 56 people that did sign. So say Joanne Lamoth, I could be Benjamin Franklin. We will say in 1776, Benjamin Franklin signed. Today it will be Joanne Lamoth. Okay, we're doing it that way so that this way,
New history.
new history, current history, not that the old one was wrong, but we're making it from Mendon, you know, as part of Mendon.
Yeah, that's cool.
Addendum to history.
Correct. We are going to do a.
Has it been muted? Go ahead.
Okay, we are gonna do a contest for one of the slots for a patriotic house decorating through town. So that is going to be one of the slots, and we will have entry forms for that and everything for people to be able to participate. Somewhere we're hoping, we're gonna try to see what we can do. We'd like to have fireworks that night, but we don't know because we gotta figure out the cost and everything, and take it from there. So.
Are there any questions from the board? We will need to have a motion to approve this event.
I just want to make sure public safety's been involved.
Oh, Mark Bucchino is on the group, and we've reached out to Dave Kersey to sit down and talk to him about the whole event.
So I don't have a calendar in front of me. So what day of the week?
That's a
is-
Sunday.
It's
It's a Sunday
Thank you.
afternoon. That's the actual day that the declaration was signed.
I just put out there, I'd also recommend that you reach out to the fire chief as well.
Sure. Yes, most definitely.
Right, so I'd be looking for a motion to approve the use of town hall for the mock signing event on August 2nd, 2026.
So moved. Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Aye. All those against? Abstain? Motion passes. Thank you very much for doing this. This is amazing. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And in other community events and announcements, we want to say happy birthday, happy 90th birthday to Justine Brewer. Justine has a very special place in my heart during pandemic. Her organization at the Daniels Foundation helped us to camp safely during the pandemic. It was a huge deal to the Scouts. It's essentially what kept us running an outdoor program when you couldn't do outdoor programs. She was amazing then. She's amazing now. She's a Mendon resident and has, like I said, associated with the Daniels Farmstead, which has been in her family, and Southwick Zoo. So we just want to say happy 90th. All right. So almost got to 6:45, but let's do an appointment. Let's talk about, is Ellen on the line to talk about Susan Edmonds for the Board of Registrars?
Invite Susan up.
Yeah.
Oh, she's right here. Sorry. Susan, why don't you come on?
Yes, come on down. Hello, everyone. Nice to see everybody.
And your name and address?
Susan Edmonds, 25 Main Street, Unit D, Mendon, across the street.
Tell us why you'd like to,
One of the benefits of having me on the board.
tell us why you'd like to serve on the Board of Registrars.
Well, Ellen came and talked to me, and I sort of expressed to Ellen that I am retiring from Milford, and I had the time, and I'd like to get re-involved in volunteering. And I said, I can do the elections or whatever you needed. And she said, well, she didn't get any action from either party. So I said, okay, I'll be willing to help.
That's a great reason.
Yeah.
Thank you for stepping up.
Mhm.
So does the board have any questions?
So a reminder, how many registrars are there on the board?
3.
3. Okay, thank you.
I'll be
Okay.
number 3.
And usually what happens is the clerk reaches out to the Democratic and Republican parties in town to ask if they want to nominate somebody to be on the registrar. And it's kind of more often than not, they do not recommend, because we're a pretty small town, and they don't really think of it as a political thing. So
No, it's nice to be able to help again.
great. Then I'd be looking for a motion to appoint.
I make a motion to appoint Susan Edmonds to the to the Board of Registrars for the term of April 1st, 2026 to March 31st, 2029.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those
Thank you
against?
very much. Nice to see you everybody
Thank you
again.
again, Michelle.
Yeah. Well, as I said, I'm across the street, so I come in very beneficial when things need to be signed.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
All right, and let's just get our appointments out of the way. Next up, I have Andrew Nickel for the Capital Planning Committee. So, name and address, please.
I'm Andrew Nickel, 17 Northbridge Road. It says street on Google Maps, but it's right. I've been a resident here just for a couple of years, since 2022. And in that period, I've been going through a process to stop full time. I've been doing some consulting, but I wanted to get involved with some town activities. My wife, Carolyn, is already active on the Council on Aging and so on. So my experience is mostly in the tech sector, product and services. I've worked around the world. You know, this weird accent isn't just from Cape Cod. It's, I've worked in Europe, Canada, Australia, and so on. Mostly in the tech sector, but I've also worked in business roles. So I've done a lot of business case development, capital planning, and so on. So talking with Phil, I thought I'd get involved in those two areas.
Yeah, that sounds like a perfect fit.
Yeah.
Does the board have any questions? We trust in Phil. And you're,
The whole planning committee approved and recommended Andrew to come to the
excellent. Then I'd be looking for a motion to appoint Andrew.
Make a motion to appoint Andrew Nickel to the Capital Planning Committee with a term expiring June 30th, 2028.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All those against? All right. Welcome to the club. We appreciate you donating your time.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Very much. Thank you, Phil. All right, and last appointment for the night is Luke Young, who I believe is online, right, Luke? Yeah, Luke, yeah. Because Luke is sick tonight and wants to have his echoing. Didn't want to have his first night get appointed and then also get the board sick. So, John, why don't you tell?
Yep, and I'd like to ask the board to appoint Luke Young to heavy equipment operator. Step 3, Luke comes to us with all of his licenses required for the job, and he is also a 5-year veteran of the Army, where he was a heavy equipment operator for them as well. He's a Hopkinton resident, so not too far away. I think he's going to be a good fit for our department.
John, is he already clicked?
So his background check and references have been checked. The only thing we're waiting on is the results of the pre-employment drug testing.
And Luke, are you online? Nope. All right. Oh no, LB, is that him? Let me unmute that. Oh, I can't. Okay, so John, there's a lot because you're feeding back into the meeting. Okay, so I heard a lot of good things there. I believe the resume is in your packet. Is there any discussion from the board on Luke Young or his credentials?
It's an impressive resume. It does look like a very good fit.
I agree.
Yeah, I have no concerns.
All right, then I'd be looking for a motion to appoint Luke Young.
Make a motion to appoint Luke Young to the full-time position of heavy equipment operator in the Mendon Highway Department at a rate of $24.97 per hour to start.
Second.
I was just about to say, pending, successful background check.
Right.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those against? All right, thank you, John. Thank you, Luke. Welcome to the family. We appreciate you applying and joining our club, and look forward to seeing you soon. All right. So now let's go start our public meeting. Only 5 minutes late, not too shabby if I say so myself. All right, so I hereby put forward a motion to open the 6:45 public hearing. Second. Discussion. All those in favor? Aye. Sorry, roll call. Cooter, aye.
Chanel, aye.
Brugos, aye.
Morale, aye.
All right, our meeting is open at 6:51 p.m. Let me just read out the public meeting. So the Mendon Select Board will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, April 1st, 2026 at 6:45 p.m. in the Upper Town Hall Meeting Room at 20 Main Street, Mendon, Massachusetts, and virtually to consider the request of Massachusetts Electric Company doing business as National Grid and Verizon New England Incorporated to install one JO pole on Thayer Road, and all interested parties are invited to attend and will be given an opportunity to be heard. So this is our first public meeting, first poll. Looks like Jeremy's bringing it up on the display. Is there a representative from National Grid here or online?
Yes, hi, this is Al Galvin, Design Engineer, National Grid, Hopedale.
Right, can you just tell us a little bit about this pole location?
Yes, so they've, with the new smart meters being an initiative now, they are putting out these AMI, automated metering antennas on poles. And with their surveys and their studies, there's already several out there. They strategically place them amongst the feeders and, such a distance apart from each other so they can properly communicate and get proper meter readings and more accurate readings for consumption, billing, all the above. So this one here was for that reason, this particular location, it fit the distance from the nearest one and where they needed another one to get some readings. And in the case for this one, they decided to go with a fresh, new, clean pole instead of moving equipment around or upgrading equipment that's out there that might be old, things of that nature.
Okay, and it doesn't look like it impacts much according to this diagram. So you're just saying you put in this pole so you can get radio coverage and it's going to be a new pole.
Yeah, it's just a communications like antenna on the top of the pole they can read each other. All these antennas can read and get the feedback from these smart automated meters that are done remotely now. And this one's on the end of a quiet wooded road, and it's out of the way, that type of thing.
So you're saying this is replacing an existing pole, and you're going to add an antenna on the new pole?
We're not replacing, just adding this is like a new intermediate pole between two that are out there.
Yeah, so they need that antenna in that position. There's nothing to mount it on until they put the pole.
I guess it's kind of an ancillary question, but there are a great many poles in town that have been replaced, and the old ones are still next to the new poles, and they haven't been removed. Some of them.
Yeah, that's
this
right.
Is kind of outside the scope of it, but we have to take the opportunity when we can. Mm-hmm. What is your plan, your company's plan for removing all of the broken and obsolete poles that are littering the landscape?
Yeah, anything we find that we have to do work in or around, if we need to upgrade that pole due to damage or its age, things of that nature, we'll upgrade it. But the 50-50 deal, the JO is the joint owned That's with Verizon. That's the pole agreement they came up with several years ago. So basically, National Grid puts them in, Verizon takes them out when they're JO poles. So any of these double poles you see out there that have been sitting a while, it's really, there's nothing we can do necessarily because that's Verizon's half of the.
We got to get Verizon on the line and essentially pressure them to come and
Yeah,
take away broken poles.
right. Yeah, we're just putting the new ones in and upgrading the equipment and things of that nature. But anything old, any of these poles that need to come out, that's all on Verizon.
Do you have any idea when that agreement is due to expire or renew? Because obviously Verizon's done a terrible job of keeping up their end of the bargain.
Yeah, I know it's been a hang up for quite some time. I don't know if, to be honest with you, I don't know if it's like staffing issues or crew issues. I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't communicate with them. We used to have a back and forth more with their design teams and things, but that was kind of expunged back several years ago. So I don't know as far as when a contract may be renewed or out. I don't think it would be over because it's not going to fall to anybody else like Comcast or anything. But as far as the renewal goes, they haven't told us that.
Is there any other discussion? I'm going to get to public comment as soon as the board's done. Is there any other discussion from the board?
Just a comment that some provisions are in the municipal empowerment.
Do what, for us to take action from a legal perspective?
Imposing teeth and penalties.
Okay.
Jeremy would be the person to give a little more.
Yeah, that's something we probably should bring up in an upcoming.
Yeah, right now, I forget the time frame that they have to remove double poles, but there's no teeth on the back end of it. So the Municipal Empowerment Act, which is still pending in the legislature, would extend the time frame that the utility companies have to remove, but then allow the ability for municipalities to impose fines after that extended time frame elapsed.
Okay. All right. So at this time, I'd like to open it up to the public. I see some people looking at the screen intently. Do you want to ask some questions or?
Tracy Smith, resident 47 Mayor Road.
All right.
And my husband, Jeff Giacomelli. So this directly impacts us.
Okay.
I'd like some clarity about what they're doing. So it looks like it is pole 24 is the one that's right across from our driveway. Which is the new pole that's going in?
It would be in between the two. I believe it's the two final pole. Well, actually, one pole was further into the wooded area. So 24 was kind of where it curves and away from, I forget what kind of a large company that is across the street from me there. There's a pole right. Yeah. So there's that, I believe that's 24. That's close to that entrance. And then to the right of that, going towards the wooded area, there's another pole that's kind of amongst the trees. And this new one will be basically centered between those two, wherever they did deem the proper location was.
I'm sorry, so between 2450 and 241?
Yes. No, 2450 is the new pole, 24 and 241.
Okay.
Oh, right. Yep.
That looks like it's just gonna be right around the entrance to Open Wall Farm Reserve.
Yes, that sounds right from what I saw, yeah.
And do you have a time frame on when this is going to happen?
Well, if this is approved, then it progresses to the scheduling phase, and then it just comes down to crew availability. So it could be a month, could be 2 months. It depends on when they're scheduling things like that. Just pole installs like this don't usually drag on too long.
Yeah, this is something they want, so it'll probably go faster. Your electric bill will be extremely accurate.
Well, this automatic metering, the smart meters, all this is a very big initiative going forward. So yeah, anything to do with that is going to be, prioritized.
Do you guys have any opposition to that?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Is there anybody else that wants to ask any questions about this particular pole placement? This public meeting, we have another one right after this. All right. So if there's no more discussion, I I would like to put forward a motion to close this public hearing.
Move to close the 6:45 public hearing.
Discussion. Roll call vote. Cooter, aye.
Goddard, aye.
No,
Brugos, aye.
Moralia.
All right, so meeting is closed, and then I would like to put forward a motion to approve the joint operated pole placement on Thayer Road as presented here.
So moved.
I skipped ahead, my apologies. You, Brendan, seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All those against? Motion passes, so there'll be a new poll in the next few months. All right, and it is 7 p.m. So I would like to put forward a motion to open the 6:55 public hearing.
So moved.
Any discussion? All those in favor, Cooter, aye.
Goddard, aye.
no,
Brugos, aye.
Moralia, aye.
All right, so the 6:55 public hearing is hereby opened at 7:01 p.m. And I will read the public meeting notice. The Mendon Select Board will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, April 1st, 2026 at 6:55 p.m. in the Upper Town Hall Meeting Room at 20 Main Street, Mendon, Massachusetts, and virtually consider to the comma's in the wrong place, to consider the request of the Massachusetts Electric Company doing business as National Grid and Verizon New England Incorporated to install one joint operated pole on Emerson Street. All interested parties are invited to attend and will be given an opportunity to be heard. All right, so this next one is Emerson Street, which is just right up the street here, across from Washington Street. And it looks like there's a new pole. No, the P1 is moving to P150. Is that what's going on? And I'm sure is this for the Route 16 work, or is this for something different?
This is to cut down on outages and the time that outages can occur when there's a fault on the line. So they're putting in one of the newer reclosers. So it acts like a circuit breaker out there on the main lines. So if it reads, it automatically reads it. So it's a lot quicker turning. It'll shut down what it needs to, so everyone else is still powered up, after the fault, and then immediately kick it back to the control center, so they can either schedule it or work on it or close it back in and get power restored. It greatly reduces the outage time during storms primarily.
So it's a redundant active passive switch, and you need to install it on a new pole.
Yeah, exactly. They typically want to put it on a straight run on a new pole that's not going to interfere with any other equipment or assets out there, and can get a clean reading on the voltages along the lines.
Right, and so my only concern right there is just, I know that street. Are you going to have to cut back into the woods? There's like a very large sidewalk there, and it's hard to tell where exactly this is going to be placed. Is it into the grass?
No, I don't have the picture in front of me, but it would be directly in line where the pole on either side of it are. So if they're right on the edge of the sidewalk, the new one would be as well, because they got to keep obviously the lines straight and stable. So it wouldn't be like a few feet off or in or anything like that. So wherever the current pole line is running down that street right now, that's where the new one would fall in line.
Jeremy, if you may, could you go to the next page in this presentation? The concern that I have, and I don't really have concern with the installation of this, it's the concern that where it says potentially contaminated dig site, contact environmental department before digging, and it's really close to that. So just want to verify that all the correct procedures were followed. And if you have any information about this potentially contaminated site and what that
My
is.
guess is that's from the old airport, and it's probably a fuel
I would also, that would be my first guess too. I just want to make
Yeah,
sure
then I'll-
that,
Yeah, and anytime we see that on these, the GIS maps during our projects, we immediately fill out some documentation for the environmental group to run their studies and check it out.
so has that been done already and it's been given the green light, or is that the next step?
That is, it's right around the same process, the progress line as these petitions. So I believe it's already been done at this point. Again, it comes down to, if they schedule it, they'll do it before anyone would actually do the work. So
You
prior
can't
to
place
the,
a poll unless they cleared that
Yeah.
anyway.
So you've got like a route card type system so it's not possible to place a poll without going through the review.
I'm sorry, say again, not possible for what?
So you have safeguards in place so that to make sure that environmental review happens before you place a
Oh,
poll.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. There's a requirement in our computer system that the job can't progress. Like the next people in line wouldn't even see the job until environmental looks it over, signs off on it, and things of that nature.
Okay, yeah. So I'm satisfied with that answer.
Hmm.
My only line of question.
Does anybody else have any other discussion? All right, I'm opening up this public hearing to public comment. Is there anybody in person or online that wants to ask a question? All right, seeing as there is none, I'd be looking, I will put forward a motion to close this public hearing. Any discussion? All those in favor, Cooter, aye.
Carter, so
Kruger's aye.
Morelia.
All right, we're closing this meeting at 7:07 PM. And I would also be looking for another motion to place this poll.
I move to approve the joint operated poll on items.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All those against, abstain? Motion passes. Thank you very much. You've got your 2 poll approvals, and we appreciate your time tonight.
All right, thank you very much. Have a good night.
Thank you. All righty. Good old pole moving installation. It's that season. All right, so in your packet for tonight, also via email and in the in the system, thank you very much, Rory. Our meeting minutes for circulation, and so we had some staff turnover, so there was a delay in getting all of these reviewed. They've now all been reviewed internally, and they've been sent out to you to review for the next meeting. And so at the April 15th meeting, we will go over these, and you will get circulated the last few that would be missing, which would be now. The today's would be the only one that's saying now that I'm thinking about it, so apologies. I had to do the calendar math.
I'd just like to, oh, sorry, go ahead, Elena.
Maybe you're addressing what I was going to ask about. So
Go ahead, Jeremy.
Yeah, there's not the typical heading that's on there and the formatting that we have. Rory did a great job of getting these all together, even the meetings that she wasn't at. And so before they get to you for approval at the next meeting, we'll have them generated back through the system and get all those fields populated, so it has all the same like header and everything on it.
Great.
I guess my question was, there were a few places where there were some gaps in there, and I didn't know if somebody was looking to like confirm those, like who made a motion in a couple of places. So I don't know, before I go back digging through the recordings, I don't know if somebody else is on that. Like I made a note.
Nobody's on it if you caught something.
Okay, well, I will point out that there were a couple of places that I saw, so I will highlight those and then find out if somebody else is looking
Yeah,
at those.
you definitely don't have to fill in those blanks, but if you saw the blanks, highlight them, and Rory and I and Kat, which I'll get into later, we'll get into that.
Yeah, there's definitely nothing known.
Okay.
Or we would have.
Well, right. I just wanted to make sure these were like the most up to
This is
date.
definitely the most recent,
Okay,
yeah.
great. Thank you.
All right, so, Mr. TA, do you want to talk about number 8, the fiscal 2027 budget updates?
Yeah, certainly. So I made this joke a while ago that I told my wife I didn't want to get married at the end of the fiscal year because it's very busy, and we got married June 27th. So now we had a baby in the middle of budget season, which is equally as hectic and helpful. So not the most greatest 2 weeks off in terms of this, but it was wonderful to be at home as family and everything. So I appreciate everyone's flexibility, and like I said at last meeting, everyone who stepped up while I was away. So fiscal 2027 budget. First things first, from an administrative sense, we're going to need some more meetings. We'll need, at the end, a final vote from select board, joint meetings, FinCom. Both BVT and Mendon Upton Regional School District are interested in coming and talking with the joint boards. So I promised them both that we would talk about dates for the future at tonight's meeting. April, today being the 1st, April is a 5 Wednesday month. Otherwise we would go, have 2 weeks in between the last meeting in April, 2 empty weeks, the last meeting in April and the first meeting in May. So I wanted to poll the board for their availability and interest in having an additional budget meeting either on the 8th, the 22nd, the 29th. Of course, other days work, but I know the cadence of the board has been Wednesdays. So wanted to poll everybody on that.
And I think we
Yeah.
talked about the 29th in
I'm-
our last meeting.
I'm available any of those.
Yep.
I tend to just assume that Wednesdays are potential.
Wednesdays are blocked, Jeremy.
Yeah, so it sounds like we're throwing some Wednesday meetings on there.
Yeah. I like keeping it every other if possible, but
Is that gonna be enough, the Wednesdays between now and then? Does that give us enough time, or do we have to double up some weeks to get it all done?
Yeah, so if we look into May, we've got May 6th and then that's it, right? Because there's town meeting on the 12th, so.
Even before that, because we have to have the FinCom has to have a budget hearing.
They don't have to.
Well,
They would really like to.
based on past practice, I think it would be problematic if they didn't, so.
We could go every
Ratchet up
Wednesday.
even further.
I have asked the chair to poll his constituency for their availability between now and town meeting and what days would be preferable to them as well.
I'll keep my Wednesdays blocked, which is okay.
Too.
I'd say Mondays are the only days I can't do. Anyway. Otherwise, sign me up.
Mike says lots of meetings.
I mean, similar to what we did in February, but I'd rather have it front loaded and compacted so we have time to react.
Right, that's,
Right.
whatever, that's why, if we need to double up, the sooner the better.
Yeah, there's probably there isn't a lack of things to talk about. And I would rather have overscheduled meetings and beat it to death than to go in front of town meeting and not have said enough.
Right.
So Mendon Upton is available. The superintendent and finance director are available next Wednesday. That was a date that they had given me. I didn't go back and forth with a bunch of dates. I said we'd have this conversation first. I still have some work to do on the salary side of the budget to make sure we're dialed in, and I have some open items I'm going to get to. So I'm not going to be ready for next week to talk about, voting up and down and having a presentation on difficult decisions. That would be pushed out till, the 15th or the 22nd for me, probably the 22nd.
Like a virtual meeting, maybe just for the school or something? Is that like, could we sneak that in there if next week is, and just do the school meeting?
Yeah, does either BVT or Mendon Upton want to come next
Or both.
Wednesday? Or both of them.
Yeah, so Mendon Upton is available next Wednesday. They're not available the 15th. BVT, I told them I'd get back to them after this meeting. So what I'm hearing is just a school budget meeting next Wednesday would work for you all. And then I'll just forward that on to FinCom as well.
I think it's important enough that, I mean, I think there will potentially be a lot of discussion, and I feel like the sooner we have that, the better.
Time is of the essence. I
Yeah.
agree. Well, we also talked about general communication.
Yeah.
and The overall budget, so
Right,
the more discussion we have about the budget, make it available to.
right. And the
for people
sooner
to
we
know
get it out to the,
Town meeting.
right, the sooner we get it out to the community that we're having that discussion, I think would also be.
Okay, we're having that discussion. Yeah, I agree. And if we could focus on just education that night,
Yeah.
be helpful. It's not a regular scheduled select board meeting, so we don't have anything that we have to do that night.
Yeah, I agree. And I would just, Jeremy, you have the leeway to bring to the table anything you're ready to speak to in terms of budget. And understand we're not gonna be voting on anything, but if you have updates, you want to leave it, say it's just the schools, it's a budget meeting. And anything you can bring on top of that, that's great. Any updates?
That makes sense to me. It'll be kind of a 3-bullet agenda: MURSD, BVT, and then other budget updates. Yeah, got it. Okay, so that was the first one. In terms of presenting a school budget, so they've been, the school committee has certified their budget. Their ask is seemingly outside what we can do with inside of Proposition 2.5 and with everything else that we do and want to do. So the way the warrant is set up is kind of a 2-step process where we vote a budget and then vote a supplementary budget for the additional school funding. So when we get into the next item on the agenda, I'll talk about the song and dance of that for both your and the public's edification. I said I have some more work to do on salary stuff. So we've got one union who is still pending negotiations. We've met twice at least, and have exchanged proposals going back and forth. It's taken a lot longer than the other 3, but that's kind of the way it goes. So like I said before, if we don't have that, you'll see a reserve for negotiation in the select board budget for all those salaries. Working on individual contracts as well. So I'll have those at a later meeting. We have a number of contracts expiring, individual ones. And then I've been working with HR coordinator Jen O'Neill on creating open-ended, but creating employment agreements for non-union folks who previously had, nothing that defined their employment with the town. And then kind of want to talk about the presentation style. So we've got the schools, of course, but is there any other departments that the board wants to talk to? And I imagine the board wants to bring the fire chief back, talk a little bit about the executive assistant position. I think I've talked to some folks individually about that, but is that something you want me to schedule as well? Would you like the fire chief here to talk about both the firefighters and the executive assistant again?
That's a good question. At the next meeting or at another meeting?
So we'll do schools on the 8th and then my other budget stuff. So you can bring him at the end if you want. It might be a long evening, but and then if we have the 22nd and the 29th blocked off as well, there's going to be a budget item at every meeting between now and town meeting before there's a final vote on, one of the last meetings in April. So my suggestion would be to bring him outside the school piece, but it's open-ended.
So on the 15th, so on a future meeting, which we're going to get to later in this agenda, so I'll just reference it now, I would like to have our public safety and highway heads of department here to chat about the culvert. So we can get that done at the same time. And I'm meeting with Chief on Monday to talk about the chief bylaw, so I can talk to him more in depth about what we'd like to see, the discussion around the financing on that Wednesday. I know I just mixed three things
Yeah,
together. but-
it's like the chief bylaw, which that's not budget related.
No, it's totally unrelated. I just happen to be chatting with him on Monday.
But is that something that's?
No.
That could actually be deferred,
It's not on the agenda. It's just I happen to be talking to him on Monday.
but I don't need to think about it.
You do not need to think about it. The only thing you need to think about is, the things he's running for the new person for his department and.
Right, so I guess, Jeremy, when you talk about the new person in this department, is that, to me, that's a question, as we do the budget in the years past, we've got a point where we've had to make decisions on changes. So if your suggestion that we want to bring the chief back to talk about a potential ad, because that's a decision we have to make, do we want to kind of park that until we have a full understanding of what all the decisions are, so we can understand the relativity of decisions we need to make? You know what I mean? I'm not sure why we're bringing that one back without everything else together.
Yeah, there's like 3 big ads relative to personnel: assistant town administrator, firefighters, and executive assistant. So that's, you know, we talked about the firefighters, we've talked about the executive, we've talked about, I can talk about the assistant town administrator at any point. It was adding that executive assistant and fleshing out the fire chief, focusing on that, how important it is.
So from a budget standpoint, if we can afford to do all 3, I say we do it, but my sense is we're going to be tight on the budget and we may not be able to do it all in a single cycle. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, that there are kind of these 3 driving pieces, and want to know the implications of doing it and not doing it.
So the takeaway to the board then is to understand in our minds individually, prioritize 1, 2, or 3, or none of those 3 budget drivers for future discussion. And if we need more information, we need to get information from Chief Bangma on the executive assistant move, from you, Jeremy, on the potential, the 32-hour position in your office, and then the firefighter. I'd like to go on record right now with the firefighters, adding those heads. To me, that'd be my number 1, right? I mean, I'm not sure we should.
Yeah, we talked that to death a lot of times, and I think came to the same conclusion every time, that we wanted to continue to build that.
Right, we talked about this year, and then in 2 years, looking to continue to build up a headcount.
Plus, we're contractually obligated to do certain things.
Yeah, well, we don't have to do it this cycle.
Exactly.
I mean, we've got 3 cycles, to your point.
Yeah.
I think if we can get a table of information with those 3, all the information needed of those 3 things before we have the discussion, we can target that discussion.
And not just us, I think FinCom would probably appreciate a similar table.
Yeah.
Because they're gonna need to kind of weigh in at that stuff as well.
Okay. Got it.
Dave,
Understood the directions.
Budget, essentially, because we're
smoothing.
smoothing them. Those are the things we're gonna have to look at, unfortunately.
All right, great.
Any-
And then there's two other pieces to budget that are still a little bit moving. Our IT managed IT contract is up at the end of this fiscal year. So I put out solicitations to 5 different vendors who are on a state contract, including our incumbent vendor. And I expect responses back in 2 weeks. So I will have at least, I have an inflated existing number in there right now. It's not like we're moving in the dark, but I'll have more information on what our IT costs will be going forward. And then this is a big one, and I don't want to put any numbers on it because I want to make sure I have it, from every angle on our insurance. So this is broadly good news. So as everyone's aware, at the end of fiscal 24, the town had more free cash than it's ever had, and the same in fiscal 25. So the fiscal 26 budget was the first one that I put together. And our insurance budget is healthy and is, shows the increases of the year before. We've run pretty big surpluses at the end of fiscal 24 or at the end of fiscal 25, I mean, and are running positive to it right now. So what Jen O'Neill and I have been working on is digging into every transaction from our insurance lines from the past 3 fiscal years to make sure we fully understand what they represent and why they change or don't change month to month. And nailing down the insurance number in a way that I didn't do last year, right? I built it up and then added a buffer to it, and now we're going to have more than that buffer. So I think for at least the last 3 fiscal years, the town has been over budgeting in what it needs for insurance. Health insurance, and that's been and by over budgeting I mean at the 75 to I don't know $150 maybe $1,000 range, not $500,000 range, but it has been supporting the free cash results that we had seen. So I haven't reduced the budget. I haven't reduced the budget in insurance in the draft budget that I have now, and it's not kind of ready for me to ultimately present. But I believe that our increase in our insurance budget, absent any, open enrollment and known additives, will be less than what we saw as the premium increase, right? Because we saw the 14% premium increase. I think right sizing what we have in there, we will see a lower than 14% insurance increase.
I'd like.
Yeah, no, and I just want to, I think Jeremy used the right term, right sizing. For people watching this, right sizing the municipal budget is not a single action. So we've been right sizing the budget over the past 2 cycles at least. So this is not a surprise. This is further into another area where we can right size something so we can, better maximize our revenues and expenses. And I think it's just one more step. It's a continuation, Jeremy. It's not like look what I found. We looked at revenue over the last 2 cycles, and we've been less conservative in the past based on free cash. Well, there's another area with the free cash numbers led us to another avenue to say, why is it so big? Can we right size it so we can reinvest it into the operation?
It's an ongoing process. Yeah, no, changing conditions required.
Yeah, I think that's well summarized, Mike. This is as opposed to the revenue side where we're talking about, raising revenue in one way or the other. This isn't, this isn't really additional money. The money's always been there. It's just it's fallen to free cash, so we had to wait to spend it after that. So it's just making sure we put that budgetary ability, the budgetary authority to work in the right way in the right fiscal year. So yeah, I've been digging into lots of other stuff. I spent most of the expense management stuff has been over joint procurement things, and then there's labor negotiations. So I'm just kind of getting into insurance in the last couple of weeks, and that's where we're at with that. So that's good news. Our IT costs are going to go up, so maybe they ends up being a wash at the end. But when you end up seeing a budget that has an insurance increase less than what we're doom and gloom on our premium increases, I just wanted to make sure that wasn't a surprise when you saw it.
What is the IT what's the length of the IT contract? 3 years. Well,
yeah,
IT is growing at the same rate as insurance at the moment. A lot of that supply chain stuff, but yeah.
Our current IT contract is 3 years. I put out solicitation for a 3-year contract. But we can always say we love your year 1 and 2 pricing, but want to go back out to the street for year 3 and on, where we don't have a contract written right now, but that's what was solicited.
Yeah. Do you have anything else on this particular item?
No, not on budget. So takeaways on the meetings that we talked about, who we're going to see next, those 2 big points, the labor piece that I talked about. I'll have a similar kind of decision matrix sort of thing as I did in last year about you say yes to this, that's what this means. And then the last part is if you know, a discussion on Proposition 2.5 override to fund the overall obligations of the town, you know, about strategies to minimize taxpayer impacts on the marginal sense there. So that means using existing funds of more right sizing in ways that we haven't explored yet. So that'll be part of a more in-depth presentation. Like I said, I've been back for like 2.5 days, so I don't have it together right now. But at one of the future budget meetings, we'll talk about kind of strategy to maximize impact operationally, but minimize impact taxpayer wise for any operational override request.
All right, board, do you have any last minute questions on that item? All right, so number 9, a legal discussion on the town meeting warrant articles.
So, yep, sorry, go ahead.
You started your talking, so you get to go first.
I'll go the two, or the easy one, and then into the two other ones. So there will be an article on the town meeting warrant that asks for authorization to borrow likely $2.1 million for the Providence Street Culvert project. There will not be a question to exclude that debt. And I just want to explain the why of it. We're going for a number of grants that will mitigate, if awarded in their full amount, will mitigate a large portion, a very large portion of the construction costs for the town, or fund on them. But if we don't get that, we still need to do this critical infrastructure project. So I want to make sure that we have the borrowing authority to continue to do this project. And then if we only get the grant in a certain capacity and we need to borrow some subset of it, I want, again, to have that authority. So I'm going to put together some language on this. I've worked with our financial advisor and bond counsel as well, so they'll be writing everything. But, get up there and raise my right hand and say, whatever we don't need, I'm going to come back at the next available town meeting and have that authorization rescinded. So it won't be outstanding on the books. So my hope would be that we'd have, borrow a few $100,000. And then should we be in the position needing to exclude that? Sure. But as I wrote in my October 24 memo, I think we can fit it inside the levy in one way or the other. Fiscal 28, we'll see. And if not, come back and ask to exclude a much smaller number. I don't want to ask for the exclusion now because I don't know what the ultimate borrowing will end up being. So I don't want to, scare folks into saying, let's exclude $2 million when really I only think we're going to borrow $350,000. So I wanted to make it a two-step process once we actually knew something a little bit better. I'll explain that one at town meeting. Any questions on that?
Nope.
All right. Do you want to, Mr. Chair, do you want to talk about the process of town meetings for the school budget?
Sure.
So I talked with council on this as well. So some of you have, maybe all of you have been a part of this. I closed out the email. Have been a part of this at one point or the other for school budgets. But there's if we, shoot, I don't have it up. So I'll have to find it when someone else is talking. So really the process, school budgets go to each town meeting. If it fails, so it goes to each town meeting. If there is an override required, the supplementary budget gets that second item that I talked about before. And then the language will be contingent upon a successful override vote. If that fails, come back to a special town meeting. Again, the same process. And if it fails, we go to a combination town meeting where each district each municipality is represented equally. So if it's 90% people from one municipality and 10% people from the other, and the vote's 51-49, or whatever the combination is, that outcome sticks. It's not there's not a proportional or per town representation. It's whoever's there. And then if that fails, Department of Elementary and Secondary Education comes in and institutes what's called a 1/12 budget, which gives you 1/12 of your budget from the previous year at a time per month to be able to continue operations. And then from there, I imagine a long convoluted legal process, and I just, that we'll cross the bridge when we get there, should we get there. So I have some talks into DLS. What I want to clear up with legal is making sure we could make a contingent budget predicated on an override vote, or supplementary budget contingent on an override vote. So we'll be able to do that. And will there be 2 budget votes? Because if not, if we just had one vote that was contingent on an override and that failed, then the town would be without a budget. So we will have a budget that funds whatever level we can fit within inside Prop 2.5, and then there'll be the secondary vote after that. I think we need some discussion on how we, organize the warrant and whatnot. But those will be right back to back next to each other.
So Jeremy, has legal advice or otherwise suggested that we have to do it any other way than what we have in the past traditionally, where the town side, so to speak, is within that budget, and then the additional request over the 2.5 override limit would be in that supplemental budget, so the town side stays intact?
Yeah, exactly that. Yep.
So can we, let's pull on that thread then. So it sounds like what you're setting up is that you've got a budget, the supplemental fails, right? And it goes down to, it feels like you're trying to isolate a portion of the budget outside of the override request, correct?
Correct.
So that passes, the supplemental doesn't at the ballot, right? Then you go back to an STM and the school committee resubmits either the same level or lower. We vote again, it fails. And then we go on to a joint town meeting and it fails there. Then we get DESI steps in and you have this 1/12 budget. How does a 1/12 budget work when you sort of isolated the majority of the budget with the supplementary approach? You know what I mean? How does the 1/12 work when you now split it?
Yeah, my reading of DLS's guidance on that is if the budget that we passed is, because it's 1/12 plus like some little multiplier, I think it's like 0.5% or something like that. If the budget we ended up passing is greater than what the 1/12 would be, then DESI still administers it, but we're not responsible for any further funds. So DESI is still kind of in the middle, as it's not like it's not like we would do 1/12 of what the override supplemental sort of thing would be. What was passed in our baseline budget would be sufficient for the 1/12 purposes. I don't know what DESI, Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, I don't know what DESI involvement really means administratively. We'd be looking deep into the fall before this happened. Or not, maybe not deep into the fall. We'd be looking deep into the summer, early into the fall before it happened. So more work to do on that. And I hope we don't get there. But I just want to make the committee aware.
We just need more clarity then. So as I hear you talk, Jeremy, I'm still not sure. Do you have to reallocate the past budget across departments, including the school, or is it like?
No, it's just the school portion of the budget.
I think what Mike is saying, I want to be sure about that, because when I talk about isolation, what I mean is, we're staying within our lane or within our means of keeping it below the 2.5 levy increase in the levy limit for the town side. And, we give the school what we traditionally have always wanted to give them as an increase. But if they need an increase for other reasons, and the override is to apply to them, we want to be sure as if it fails, it doesn't come back where the school gets everything they asked for, and we have to decimate the town side to backfill it. And what you're telling me is that's not what would happen with DESI. It would be a 1/12 or whatever they come up with. but it shouldn't be more than a 1/12
That's
of
what
what
he
we
said.
passed in the original budget.
So the decimating scenario would be, each annual town meeting fails, special town meeting fails, goes to a combo town meeting, and then the combo town meeting passes a budget, and then the override within Mendon fails. So then we would be on the hook for the greater appropriation without the ability to raise it from an override.
But that doesn't happen until we go to the joint town meeting and then we go for another bite at the apple for an override amendment.
The
Correct.
distinction, Jeremy, it's a question I've had, is there any scenario where the school does not get all the money they've asked for? And this would be that scenario, it fails at a joint town meeting, fair?
If it fails at a joint town meeting, yeah.
That's the only scenario where, and we've never gotten it that far.
There's always been compromises before that.
Yeah.
Can you just remind me? So the joint town meeting, I thought that came if it passed in one town and failed in the other. Does it happen if it fails in both towns?
Yeah, so but because we're a two municipal district, and so each essentially has veto power. What I meant by fails was it fails in either one or both. So the budget fails when at least one community votes against it.
And isn't it true that if it fails in one and passes in the other, then it's up to each town to decide, all right, we're either gonna live with the original budget. I mean, it's if one pushes it to a joint town meeting is when that happens. Because there's always the opportunity for the school committee to recertify at the lower number and then take the cuts on that.
I know, like, in the past, there's been some contention around having the wording be such that the operational override is just for the school district. And I know, like, I guess one question is there a way to word it? Because so that it doesn't seem like, oh, well, I know that Mike Krager had expressed that the concern about seeming like it was setting up the school district against a town side. And so I do wonder, like, what sort of flexibility is there about wording? So that it does not have that appearance of saying like, well, the town has ours, so this is separate for the school district.
But except that the reality is that the town side is not growing faster than 2.5. If you can term it that way, where it is the school, and it's out of their control because of contractual reasons and special education, transportation, and their own experience rated health insurance. It's the school that needs this amount beyond the 2.5 because the town side, we can stay within it. And I think that's really why it's been worded that way, when it is in reality.
I think you guys want to also capture some of that for when they're here next week, because those are great
Well,
questions to like get them on the spot with.
Right, and I also want to see like where the other town side
Yeah.
changes come in, because I want to be transparent about this. Like, I know there's been some contention in the past, and I think if we can just address those head on.
Yeah, nobody likes their expectations broken. And, this is something we didn't know originally.
I think, right, and I think especially when we're talking about adding positions at the town side, and I know that, we have that ComClass study that, that affects our town side salary. So like, I just want to make sure that we're clear with everyone about what all has increased.
100%. Yep, agreed.
So on the initial question, what flexibility do we have? So on the actual ballot question, I'm just pulling that up now. I don't believe there's a lot, but in terms of like the motion at town meeting, there's a lot of flexibility. So shall the town of blank be allowed to assess an additional blank in real estate personal property taxes for the purposes of, and then you have to say what the purposes are. So in the event, because then that's what doesn't get funded, and that's what, so in the ballot question itself, you have to say what the purposes are. So, that's an ongoing question for legal. I had, I guess, what does the board want it to say when we get there? Should we get there? For, general town operations, general town and school operations for the funding of the regional school district. It's all this is fungible, right? Like it's a $25 million budget, I guess I'm not going to go through the whole concept of fungibility, but like, if we didn't pay for internet, we could put that money towards the, so it's difficult to isolate, and it becomes a political or policy question for you all.
I mean, I understand where you're coming from. We talked about it. I'm in agreement based on the last meeting, but given the approach Jeremy just outlined, I think we're actually very limited in how we cannot align the supplemental funding to the school, just the way the approach that was just laid out. But I think for all transparency's purpose, I think we could be very clear where our investments are going in this cycle and in future cycles. So once again, this is not a one-year thing. This is needs to be presented as a multi-year plan.
Yep.
Looking ahead, we're almost forwarding, an investment in the school. That's what I'm looking at now. Yeah. And I think we just need to work on, we've talked to them about it, but just, what are the outer years are going to be lean if we're doing it this way now. Has to be, because we have to balance it in the outer years.
Yeah, but Elaine, make a great point about adding positions on the town side or not,
Right.
because
It's all
we don't
gotta be
have-
part of the same.
we've only got so much to give.
Right.
Right, and that's the point.
I mean, I would say the size, making the changes on the town side in relative to just the insurance increases on the school side. It's not.
Oh, I know. Yes.
One won't solve the other completely.
Right.
Is my point.
And I also kind of applaud the strategy that Jeremy's proposed. Trying to be the most fiscally responsible we can and, shield general operations and prevent like a self.
There really is no
situation.
There's no other decision to be made.
You realize the shielding of the general operation is if it gets to a joint town meeting, which is the last step we've never gotten to.
Well, I know,
Right.
but.
But you begin with the end in mind.
No, I know, but I think in the event. Yeah.
You don't want to talk too much about the thing you're not planning.
No, I just think that I'm hearing I'm not sure our approach is much different than we've done in the past.
Right. Oh,
No.
it's
I
I'm
think
just
because
saying
it's
that
it's the only approach that we can take.
well, I guess that's the question, that I have.
Our focus
Is it the only
minimize,
approach that you can?
mitigating the amount.
But
Yes.
Effectively, it is.
so I'm curious, Upton is doing this independently, but I'm just curious, do we have, I'd be curious what they are putting on their warrant, because we'll be doing these things in parallel.
Based on the discussion at the joint meeting that we had and listening to their FinCom chair, we're on the same page.
Well, I think we need to get an update.
I mean, I
sure.
would be, well, they didn't have a quorum.
No, but
No, I think they've got their own investments they're making on their side.
Right.
They may defer, all I know. I haven't
Right.
seen their warrant.
And we can write up a summary of our thoughts and send it to the board.
Yeah, I think it would be interesting to know what Upton is doing, because we're the same community, and I think we want to like those who support it, I think it will be easier if they know sort of that we're doing something that is at least parallel, even though the numbers are not going to be the same. We know that.
Maybe go back 2 days if you talk about them.
Well, can you just put it on the list for you and I to sort of craft a correspondence that would get an equal correspondence back to us from their board? Just, and we can bring it into public meeting and see if we're all on the same page. We won't be able to probably arrange a joint board meeting in the next 4 weeks. So
I thought somebody just pick up the phone and call.
Yeah.
well, you can't call 5 people at the same time. I'm just saying.
You can find them.
I'm trying to be more officially present and say that like, hey, our board cares. We're going to tell you how we care, and we're welcome to the same opinion.
Jeremy, have you had many conversations with your new counterpart in Upton?
No, she started a week before I went on leave. So I was supposed to meet with her during one of those 2 weeks, and I obviously canceled it. So we're trying to find time to meet next week to be able to go over this. So that's what I was going to say. We can, if you want any sort of joint stuff, Kristen Rubin, her name is. So Kristen and I can help coordinate that.
All right, so is that all on the school and the additional item for the Providence Culvert borrowing
Yeah,
with those?
Yeah, that's all.
So Jeremy mentioned it quickly. I just want to say it a little bit more drawn out so that everybody hears it. We presented the citizens petition to our council. Our council has deemed that it wouldn't be a legal request of the town to have that petition voted on at the annual town meeting. So it is on the warrant because that is the law. However, the town moderator will need to pass over that item as it's not a legal request. So I want to say that out loud in public meetings so everybody hears that. That's not a decision the board made. That was a request to our lawyers to tell us whether or not it was possible for the town to implement that item on the town meeting warrant. And so I want to extend out the conversation to say that, and I mentioned it earlier, and I'll say it again, that I'm going to request that our public safety heads and our highway heads show up on the 15th, which is our next meeting in 2 weeks, so that we can have a more protracted discussion about the scenarios that were brought up. And I've also requested that they put together a cost matrix for all the things that have been recommended over the last few weeks. So that would include like, how much does it cost to line the road? How long does it take to line the road? How much does it cost to cut back the trees? How long does that take? Do we have to talk to people about it? All that stuff. So that we can have both like the economic argument and the safety argument. And so I'll just throw out some numbers there. I was talking to the town administrator, like, for example, how much does it cost to put 12 officers on duty 12 hours a day, every day for 4 months? And that came out to $66,000-ish. I think that was 4 months, right? And then, just to give you some estimates about how much it costs to do this sort of thing. So like if we didn't line the road and you didn't have temporary traffic lights, you would have to have police there in order to do the two-way thing. That's how much just that one piece of it would cost.
And did they figure in the cost if we were to make it two-way and if there was to be a tragedy of a crash, and exactly what the cost would be for the town to go against all of the experts advising us not to do this, and what the ramifications would be of a civil suit for someone who injured?
I don't know if to put all that out.
It's impossible.
But if it's possible to make the cemetery, so here's the question that has never been answered: is it possible to make cemetery a legal, safe, two-way street? Is that a possibility? I haven't heard anybody tell me yes, that's a possibility, but I've also never heard anybody tell me no, that's not. Like, given unlimited funds, what would the cost be? And so I think until we really know, is it a third of the cost of the project? Is it the same cost of the project? Will it take 6 months to do that work? And so the project has to move out 6 months and we lose our grants. So I don't have any of those answers. I know none of you have any of those answers. So I asked that a few days ago. Jeremy reinforced it. They are meeting on it. And then on that Wednesday at the next meeting, I invite all those people here so that we can have this kind of straightforward discussion with the facts in front of us, and we can say, like, is this, are we solving safety problems or creating more safety problems? Even if the money is possible, I want to hear all that.
I mean, aside from what you mentioned the other day, your question, which is a good one, there's a series of questions and takeaways from the last discussion we had that was to go to public safety. Have those been forwarded as well?
No, I'm going to say no, because I haven't seen anything. So, and I just I've summarized kind of what I've summarized to you to them. I have not extracted all the questions out of that previous meeting.
So will there be an opportunity for the public to send their questions, there may be additional questions, especially since, we've just said that this citizens petition would not be legally viable.
So
Potentially, there may be more input. And so there may be more questions and more suggestions. And so how should those be filtered in? Because I think
Well, that should be an
ideally,
FAQ for sure.
yeah. So, well, I mean, ideally, people would send the questions ahead of time so that if there is research that needs to be done, there would be time to do that.
Yeah, I would have loved to have set up a form right before this and then told you I had a form ready to go.
Right.
I think in the meantime, people can just send an email to me. My email is jkuter@mendonma.gov. You can send it to bos@mendonma.gov. That's the board of that needs to be changed, but it's the Board of Selectmen at mendonma.gov. And Jeremy Stull. If you just send that in, I did talk to somebody earlier today and I said the same sort of thing. If you just talk to us, we are receiving a lot of the same questions over and over again that there are answers to, like who decided this wasn't safe. That is in the town administrator's memo and it's very clearly lined out. But the exact details, I talked to Mr. Chanel earlier today, and he's like, what are the exact details about how they did that? I don't have that answer. So that's a good point. What are the exact details about how did they make that safety decision other than personal experience? So yeah, that's something that I can take that on to put all those questions together into an FAQ and we can publish that on the website. But there's a lot of stuff I don't have the answers to.
Right. Well, right. And I mean, I think you would not be necessarily the one
Nope.
with those answers.
I definitely wouldn't, but
you are willing to take
demanding
the
it,
questions. You are willing, you're
Oh,
collecting all the questions. So that's
in general, you can always talk to the board at any time, right? We open the beginning of the meeting up. And I think everybody here would agree, Phil's been here for a lot of meetings where just like this second right now, I'm talking to Phil in the audience. If you're here during a meeting and you raise your hand, I don't think we've ever not called on anybody, even if that's not part of the normal kind of public meeting foray. Like we don't have to call on the audience, but if you all are sitting here with us, then you deserve to talk while we're here. So that's an open invitation to the public. Yeah.
So I know we're not required to have a public hearing on this topic the way we are for the utility poles, but is there a way that we can contact residents? So this will affect certainly Providence Street. So Providence Street and Cemetery Street. So I know most of them are aware of that, but they're not necessarily aware that we're planning a forum in a couple of weeks. So I don't know if there is a means of contacting those residents that would be not as formal as sort of the letters to abutters that go out when we have.
We can do all the communicating on.
We have a list of,
Right.
Jeremy collected emails from
Right.
2 meetings ago.
Right.
Everybody in the room. So I think he's actually been.
Right. And I mean, we have the petition, have all of those names. I just wonder if there's a way that we could reach out directly to those.
I think we did.
And keep in mind, we do have a program in town through dispatch where we can make a phone call to everybody, because I think it's important to understand, as well as the people who are south of that culvert are affected, the people north of the culvert are affected because they can't go the other way. So it really does affect everybody in town. Anybody who wants to go
Right.
south can't go that way. They have to do the reverse route. But we can certainly have public safety make a phone call and notify everybody when there's a hearing. And we have multiple ways.
The other thing we don't have is we don't have like a map of the published routes. We have the suggested route, right? But we don't have a map of all the sort of situations, right? Like for example, I don't know, you're coming through the Carpenter Hill, Vincent area, right? And you want to go south to Providence. Now you got to go, right? I have a friend who lives on Massasoit. So that means to get to their house, I can go down, I can go out. I live on Blackstone. I can go out and around and down Cemetery, but to go back, I got to go through Millville to get back down onto my road, right? So, so I highly recognize the problem. And the other thing is, I'm not going to be able. It's hard to walk on Blackstone as it is. It's dangerous, but you know, I walk on it. My family walks on it. It'll be impossible, right? So I won't be able to bring my dog on that road during busy times. So, you know, we're all affected. I would love to have a solution that was better than, you know, what we've got at the moment. I think that's what we need to figure out is if that's possible, because with all the fiscal constraints that we have right now, spending another $300,000 might not be in the books. So, and I wouldn't want that bridge to fail and then just have a permanent detour while we wait to have that go in. So.
Just a quick comment. So you mentioned communication to the signatories of this petition.
Mm-hmm.
Do we, as a board, think it makes sense to reach out to them proactively and let them know that, hey, this is what town council says, this is why it doesn't make sense. We just want to be transparent with you. We're not trying to pull a fast one. This is.
I did that with the organizer of the petition this morning. So I haven't done it with everyone, but with Mr. Audette this morning.
Thank you.
I think that makes sense because, you know, just, we don't want anyone to get there and be surprised. In my opinion, I don't know. Does anyone agree?
I think some people are still going to be surprised. And
Of course, you can't, as much as we try, we can't reach everyone.
yeah, and I don't know who I was talking to one of you at some point in time and saying, I think the biggest thing I heard out loud from the community was that no matter what, people are going to drive up that street. I think that was the hardest thing to hear. And so like Mr. Maroli keeps saying, like, if we're going to prevent accidental injury or death on that road, then, and people are telling us they're going to drive up that road no matter what we do, then it seems like we have to figure out how to make that road safe. And I just don't know what that really means because I'm not the expert there. So that's what we need to find out.
Do you have a sense of how long of a forum this is likely to be? I mean, I know we have a lot of other, so this is going to be in 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess we're doing a lot of budget stuff in 1 week. So I guess
I think we can dedicate a half hour to it at the beginning of the meeting. I think that's reasonable. Definitely not going to make everybody wait until 8 to talk about it. But yeah, Mr. Kersey, why don't you go ahead? Sorry if you've had your hand raised for a while.
Nope, I literally just raised it. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, because I got my headset on. You're concerned about people telling you they're literally going to drive the wrong way. We would deal with that. And when they tell you they literally do it and then do it, as Mike knows, they're crossing the line of criminal activity at that point. It becomes a little bit more than civil at that point.
All right.
Chief, can
Noted.
you look into the ability to put up a traffic cam at the intersection of Cemetery and Hartford Ave so that we can, maybe as a deterrence with a big sign that, you know, smile, you're on candid camera, or
yeah, we can absolutely look at. We can look into that. And I mean, and of course, if it goes through where it stays a one way and it opens up, we will have extra enforcement there to make sure no one gets hurt. Because that's just willful and negligent behavior if they go and do that. Anybody does that and they tell you they're going to do that. That's just inappropriate and something we would definitely wouldn't tolerate in the town.
So, yeah. All right. So that, I mean, it is what it is. I would say that this is a hard thing for the board, given that we, just like the budget, we have very limited options to us. And the best thing that we can do is listen to our experts. But the better thing for us to do is understand the residents. And so I think we've been hearing a lot of that, and that's good.
I think everybody needs to understand, we take no pleasure in telling people they can't do what they want to do. We take no pleasure in telling people that the road's going to be closed, but it's kind of like gravity. You know, whether you believe it or not, if you jump off a 30-story building whether you believe it or not, or agree with it or not, you know, the outcome's gonna be the same. And that's what's problematic about having to close a road and opening an unsafe path that was unsafe 30 years ago, and it's become even worse because the traffic flow has increased. And we've had multiple experts that have told us that, and I realize there are a lot of people that, you know, don't agree with that, or don't believe that, or don't want to believe that. I don't either. You know, I have family that's down that way, but it's just an inconvenient reality.
Just want to make sure for people watching, I mean, there's been no vote taken yet.
Oh, yeah.
Correct.
Right.
Right. I'm speaking just about
Yeah, we're just
what
talking.
we had many experts that looked at it. We never haven't made a decision, but.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we have a number of questions out to the people from our last discussion. We're gonna have a discussion when we get valid questions to those people. There's a lot about, how did you make that decision? There's
Right.
you know, the engineer said unfettered traffic. Well, that's a condition that is a presupposed condition. What if it's not unfettered traffic? Does all your conclusions still hold up? I would agree with Mike. I'm gonna lean towards the advice of the experts, but I still have questions as to how they came to the conclusion. So we're waiting for that information. No decision.
No decision has been made. Joel Karsh, I don't know you. Are you a town resident? And if you are, can you say your name and your address?
I was in the building a short time ago, so.
Oh, Joel. You just sent me an email, Joel. You know what? I forgot your last name already, so I apologize. And it's JK, and I keep reading Jason Cooter. That's my initials.
Oh,
and so
don't worry at all. I just want the board, and we can talk about it further, but you know, you're going for funding of over $2 million for this project, and then you mentioned the ability to fund police enforcement in the area for 12 hours for every day of the year, and that being another $60,000. I just want the board to think about, I still don't like the word, I apologize, but I do not like the word can't. What can we do? And I'll leave the board with this one last thought. There's so many permutations, ways of doing it, but do we set up with enforcement? Because you're going to have to get the buses out of there. Anyways, don't tell me this isn't going to be during school, because that's not accurate. Why not let the people out of there in the morning with police presence at both sides to let the buses out, and anybody who wants to get out without going all the way to Blackstone or South Bellingham. I encourage the board to think like that. It's going to cost money. I get it. It's not going to help me.
Let's be clear, Joel. This isn't like money that comes out of the board's pocket. This is money that comes out of the town's pocket. So we want to be super clear.
I fully understand that, and I apologize if I intimated that. It needs to be budgeted for, and do we have it? But is it a compromise solution? Those are the kinds of things I want to talk to the safety people about. How viable is that to do if you can't make that road a two-way? And there's a lot of valid safety reasons, and I'll stop there, because I don't, you guys have done a lot of work tonight, but I just wanted to add that, and I thank you.
It's an open question. Can it be one way but bi-directional? Right? So you don't have, and that would require details or temporary traffic lights. There are a lot of ideas thrown out there. So I'd say to Joel's point, I think that's one of those things that's still out there to kind of say,
Right.
hey, had they thought about it, respond.
We can't see logistics.
And they could have. We just don't know if they
Right,
did.
walk us through the details.
Yeah, which means, Jeremy, we probably have to contact Time Bond and see if we can get a representative of theirs to come over. And also if they could forward the board the intimate detail that they have, so that we have access to it, especially our engineer in-house here who can look a little closer.
I know somebody had asked for, so I'm sorry, Chief Kersey's on, but I know there was an ask to say, what is the public safety plan if the street's closed for emergency vehicles, et cetera.
Yeah, like who waits and
Yeah,
whatnot.
but like in detail, not like there must be a written plan and an individual from the last meeting had said, can we see that plan? So there's a lot of asks from the 2 meetings ago.
Yes.
That are still out there that we need to make sure we close the loop on.
Yes. All right. That's an action item for us. All right.
I
So
met with Ty and Bond today, along with John Dudley, the highway superintendent, and told them to block off the next 2 Wednesdays because we'd be asking them to come. So we will have them join on the 15th as well. They're our engineering firm.
all right. So I beat that one up. Does anybody else have anything to add before we kind of move on to the town administrator's report?
Are we talking, have we covered, is the warrant in the packet for a separate item or is that part of the budget discussion?
Part of both budget and that legal discussion, but it's open if you want.
Yeah, I just wanted to know, Jeremy, there's a placeholder for a BBT budget article, but generally that's part of the broader budget. So I'm not sure if that was just kind of a something we clean up or are we doing it differently?
No, we'll clean it up. They sent out something that said, hey, here's our information language for a warrant article. And then when I wasn't here, and Jen, out of an abundance of caution, got a request to put something on the warrant. So she put it in there as a placeholder. So we'll clean that up. We're not making any changes, no.
Thank you.
So can you remind us of the timeline for the warrant, like when it will be finalized and mailed out to the public?
I have a schedule with Alan. It's on my desk. It's now closed. It closed on the 24th. But
it's
three
still,
to yeah. I still have a lot of work to do on it. At least 3 weeks before town meeting. So by the end of April.
So yeah, town meeting's on May 12th.
In the 12th. Yeah. So not the last
Okay.
week, the week before. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so like preferably we'd like to have all that done that week of the 27th. Probably the 27th is a good
I mean, but
last
if
minute day to hand it.
it's got to be before then though, right?
I mean, they'd be like sending it to print that day.
I thought, but that's not 3 weeks before.
It's not, but I think it's something like, it's a printer thing. It's like 15 to 20 days.
But it's got to be in the mail.
Oh, right, it's gotta be in the mail.
Right,
So it's
right,
gotta print at least a week.
All right, so
Right.
420 is,
right. So the 15th is our last meeting before this needs to get printed.
Unless the 16th. Or maybe
Right.
the 14th.
So, well, right, I mean, I just think it's helpful to keep that in
Yeah,
mind.
no, we got
The-
meetings coming.
The 15th is also going to be probably a fair amount of time working through the warrant, right?
yes, and then I just, I'll remind you guys, remember the warrant that's the shell and it's the motions that are the kind of details on the shell, so.
Well, yeah, we don't need the details. We need to make sure we have the specific warrant articles agreed to.
Right.
We're going to present any order in which they're going to be.
Yeah, right, the order. Okay, so, we'll see where Jeremy is next week. And then if we have to do an additional meeting on that week of the 13th, that we will.
Yeah.
And that would be the 14th or the 16th is what you're saying. Okay.
Or the 17th. That's a date too.
I'm gonna shoot for the 14th because I'm supposed to get it. Okay. Mr. Town Administrator, do you want to talk about your Town Administrator report?
Yeah, certainly. This won't be too long of one. So I've spent the last couple of days kind of catching up with staff and on emails and things like that. So I have, there's a request to Highway about a pothole plan and what that meant for repair, or what their plan was for repairing potholes now that we're out of snow season. So it's the same approach to that generally take, but the department will start on the major roads, so places like Millville, Hartford Ave, East and West, Northbridge Street, Bellingham Street, North Ave, and we're Highway's almost caught up on getting those done. And then residents can report anything that's outstanding. So with weather issues, especially when it rains, Highway can fix a pothole today. It rains, it has a lot of traffic, and it reappears on the next day because of the patch that we use this time of year. So residents can report potholes. Just pick up the phone, call the highway department. Or the highway just started a Facebook page. So everyone go and follow the Mendon Highway Department on Facebook for some updates on projects and happenings around town related to highway, but also just message on there. However you can get in contact with the highway department or get on their ledger, on their schedule. And then so typically when other projects allow, commit crew of 3 people, at least 2 days a week to do pothole repair. So in seasons past, they've been winding down by about later April, early May, by getting caught up from winter's damage. So takeaway from that is major roads, smaller roads, at least 3 people, a couple days a week. And any additional potholes that creep up, just give the highway department a shout, and we'll make sure we get them taken care of.
Jeremy, do you know, start using the hot patch? Because those are more.
Yeah, exactly. John, you're still on. Do you know, when do we go from the cold patch to the hot patch?
We've been using hot patch as it's available all winter. The second plant and actually the preferred plant that we usually use is opening up next week, and they will be open 5 days a week. We use another plant in Bellingham throughout the winter, and they are kind of sporadic when we go to see them. Sometimes they're closed, sometimes they're open, but we should be having a steady supply of hot patch going forward here.
Is hot patch pricing changing at all because of the economic situations?
I haven't seen a change in the pricing yet, but I expect that it's going to come. I've heard from vendors that prices are going to go up this year quite a bit.
The DOT publishes benchmark rates that most hot mix. Sorry, thank you. That most hot mix contracts key off of. So as petroleum gets more expensive, liquid hot mix asphalt then gets more expensive on a contractual level. You don't even have to wait for your procurement to be up or whatever. There's escalators built into most of these contracts. So we will be feeling it if we haven't yet.
Right.
Also on highway, we talked a lot about Providence Street Culvert, but I just wanted to talk about schedule wise because we met on that today. So Chapter 85 review, which is what Mass DOT does, and in a sentence or two, Chapter 85 says that Mass DOT has to review for safety and structural integrity all projects greater than 10 feet on roadways. So even though it's not a state project, they review it to make sure it's safe for everybody. They have windows in which they can review parts of our plan, and then they have optional extensions to extend that. I believe it's optional, but extensions of that window. And they have taken up until the end of every window so far. So we are what we had as an aggressive timeline, or not aggressive timeline, a quick timeline. DOT has not done us any favors. So summer construction as initially conceived is likely not attainable, and we'll be pushing it out until later summer, earlier fall, which I know can be more disruptive to the school department. Where we're at in the review now, a hydraulic report is due back to our consultants, and then they have comments. We submit it back. They submit another comments. So the best case scenario for us is to have a procurement document available, a bid open in June. And then, like I said, our total construction price, which includes a 20% contingency right now, is $2,025,000, which is only up slightly from our fall 2024 estimate of $1.96 million. So escalation has been was pretty well dialed in what the initial estimate was. So I just wanted to make sure that was fully communicated to the board that shovel in the ground the day school is out is not achievable on the current timeline.
DOT?
Yeah, I mean, they're in their allowable timeframes, but they've taken till the end of the time frame and their extensions at every juncture, which was kind of worst case scenario for us on a permitting level. Like I said, IT procurement is out. I brought that up earlier, but that's on my report here. The boards and my new administrative assistant, Kat, starts on Monday. So she'll be in Monday. Stop in, say hello, and that'll be great. And coming in at a busy time for meetings, which will be interesting. And then just a heads up to the board, I have an appointment in the morning, and then I have a board meeting with our regional dispatch in the afternoon. So I'll be working, but not in the office tomorrow.
I got
that's all I got.
Is Kat sitting up here upstairs?
Yeah, for the time being. So my plan right now, I'm getting some quotes to do it, is to flip around 2 offices downstairs. So 3 offices downstairs to accomplish 3 separate goals all in one project. Couple, actually, right now the treasurer collector's office is huge and only has 2 people. The assessor's office is small and doesn't have a window or enough storage. And I am on a separate floor from my assistant. So we're kind of flipping around, going to get quotes to see if it's, to be within reason to put a new window in, put a new wall in. I'll share the plans when we have them, and flip around a couple offices downstairs. So starting on Monday, Kat will sit up here, and then hopefully in the next weeks or months, we'll have a configuration downstairs where my office is where the current treasurer's office is, and Kat's able to sit right outside of that, and have us close physical proximity.
All right. Is that all you got for us tonight then?
Yeah, that's all I have.
Yeah, at least there's not too many things to do. All right. Yes, sir.
So I noticed there's been a little bit of progress on Plain Street. I know that was kind of languishing for the winter. Is there an updated timeline on that whole situation?
I asked about it. Yeah, I asked about it before I went on leave. I'm still not through all my emails, but I don't think I see one, so I'll ping them again.
I've seen some contractors up there.
It looks like at least one utility moved their data lines.
Right, there's definitely been movement.
Yeah, something's happening up there. Almost every week I see someone there.
Upside keeps changing on the farm.
And I will tell you that after we finished the hearings, I sent an email to my contact at Verizon.
All right.
They just let them know that they were thrown under the bus again.
I mean, there's one on Blackstone, there was a car accident and there's like spikes pointing out into the road, and that thing has been there for, 8 months now. This is crazy. You'd think they'd want to move their wires because it would be safer for them.
The last conversation I had, not that I know this is out of sequence, was that between National Grid that puts the new pole and Verizon takes it down, there are other people who have data lines who have to move them.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, there are some lines that are no longer used that were
So
never.
they don't even know who to.
And there are other ones that they don't know who it is. And the answer is they can't just
Detach them and attach them to the new one.
That's well, they can't touch. They're not supposed to touch anybody else's lines. But anyways.
All right.
Right. I just asked, why don't you just cut them? Because then you can find out who it is.
Right. So in IT, we call that a scream test.
Yep.
And believe it or not, like it's a real thing. And you build it into your process. You shut down stuff for 4 hours and you bring it back up again and you see if anybody screams when you don't know what it is. I mean, clearly we wouldn't do this on something we knew about, but we just went through a whole series and not a single person called. And so sometimes that happens, like there's just legacy stuff that sits around and there's nobody there to yell about it. So. All right, future agenda items. We have the GBRC to talk about priorities for special town meeting and annual town meeting next year. The noise bylaw, just didn't have enough time to go get community feedback or anything. So that's going to be postponed to at least special town meeting. But I still think that's important to get finished up. I think the community feedback is super important. And so that just needs to happen there. And there's, of course, a lot of bylaw stuff that people would like to see. We've talked a lot about it here. And so just, always keeping the GBRC top of mind. But when we get to goal setting for next year, we should think about, telling them specifically where we would like them to focus. And they're hopefully getting a new member soon, who is a lawyer. Paddock property status, that's something that Brendan asked for, like where are we at with that? It's kind of a planning, land use, CBC sort of things. We have to get some information from them. Jeremy mentioned the water project update. When that's all ready, we'll bring them in, those engineers to come in and talk about the next phase. And by water project, if you're listening to this, you're like, what water project? Bringing municipal water to the town. And what that means, we've already got the aquifer all set. And so, how do we get to the next phase of actually bringing the pipes into town property? Emergency management discussion. This is to find out what our roles and responsibilities as a board are in the emergency management playbook. The town is responsible for cemeteries and ensuring that there's enough cemetery space. And it's been brought up a bunch of times, and we need a new cemetery. So that's something that needs to be talked about. TAF library facilities discussion. Another thing that's been brought up before that we need to bring back again is the allocation of what's going to happen to the old rectory, which is currently just housing the HVAC systems and electrical systems for the building. That needs to be utilized or improved so that it doesn't fall apart. The scouts would like to put up a scouting banner. I don't know how big it is or what it says or any of that, but this is for me to remind them to come here and talk about that. So that's why that's there. Municipal fees, we've talked about before. Ellen has sent her suggestions to Jeremy and I, and we'll try to get that probably right after town meeting. And we'll chat about making those fees uniform and easily addressable by the board or whomever we delegate that power to. The fire chief bylaw is about changing the fire chief bylaw to be more of a strong chief bylaw. We haven't talked about that very much in open session. I mentioned I'm going to talk to the chief on Monday about that and see where he would like to go with that. And again, back to GBRC. Do we want to push that on GBRC to flesh out? Is that something that's important to this board this year? And then 18 Main Street building name. That's new. Jeremy, what's that about?
Yeah, Mike Morelli had been involved in this. I got looped into an email thread that was started before my tenure with the town. And it's about the naming. So 18 Main Street is the old Taft Library. It's the red building next to Town Hall that we also refer to as Town Hall Annex, and houses our inspectional services departments. And there was a proposal from a resident about what we should name the building. So then there was questions about what our obligations were under the original donation requirements. And I even absent or outside of that inquiry, I've had some staff say to me, what should we name this building? We can't call it the annex all the time. To which I said, sure we can. But there is interest. There's interest in at least exploring what our options are. So I'm gonna gather a little information, but this will come to the board at some point, and any input or feedback you all have on it, we'll gladly take.
Voting McBoat face.
Voting McBoat face.
Thank you.
Townie. Yeah, Mike.
One more agenda item would be, we should probably get an update from Dylan on her work, bringing the licensing and permitting online. So I think our select.
Yeah, the uniform process.
Just a general update from her.
For planning.
From CMRPC and her and her as the planning for the town. It would be great to have her give us a.
But this is a specific project she's ready to launch, that I want to make sure she said you should probably get in front of the board to make sure we understand, because it's our license. It's a select board license that are first up. And started to continue within the building department to bring more than just building online.
Okay.
So I think it makes sense for her to get an update.
Would also be nice to get.
I think something that should be post ATM though, Jeremy, I think.
Yeah.
You know, seems like next few weeks.
I'd appreciate that. Yeah.
All right, so speaking of next meetings, our next official select board meeting will be Wednesday, April 15th. That will be an exciting one for sure. But most likely there will be one on April the 8th for us to talk to the schools about their budget. That is all I have for tonight. So that being said, I would be looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. We are now adjourned at 8:30 p.m. Have a great night.
Thank you, everyone.
You.